Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your fat sis Terrie, and I am not alone. And I keep my word and I keep my promises. I did say I would have Nthabiseng Mokoena in my last video, in the video where I talked about luxury items. Did you watch it, sis?
Oh, obviously. I needed to prepare.
Did you hear the shout out? Yeah. So I did say in that video that Nthabiseng and I would be talking about mental health. So hi, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Nthabiseng Mokoena here. Is that how I introduce myself?
Yeah. And
mental health advocate.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like social justice advocate.
Favorite rich aunt.
You know the vibe. Yes.
OG. I see you on your profile pic.
Yes.
OG. What is that?
OG. It's basically a creative agency. Mm-hmm. So what we do is that what we're trying to do is that we're trying to promote creatives and art. From music to clothing to showcasing, fine art. So
we're gonna have a conversation about that.
So
after this video, Yeah. Okay, that sounds so interesting. All right, love it. So today we're going to talk about mental health, and as you know, your fat sis is a mother of fact. I like bringing out facts. So before we go into this conversation, I just want to paint a picture and bring out the stats so that when we speak, both Nthabiseng and I speak about whatever we're going to talk about, then we have an idea of where we're coming from and what the stats are saying. So these particular stats that I'm going to go into, I found them on Daily Maverick, the website called Daily Maverick, and the article was by Mark Haywood, and it was published in October 2021. I'll link the article in the description box below, and you can click and read it yourself. So I took away the important points that we're going to need for this video. Okay, so as I was saying, the stats that Mark Haywood wrote in the article, he says that between, and you'll surely this will sound familiar to you, between January and September 2021, SADAG, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, received 466,607 calls. An increase of 47% from 2020. And the suicide helpline received 85,516 calls. That amounts to 2,200 calls per day.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. For the first 9 months of 2021, from people with suicidal thoughts. And SADAG's findings coincide with a report released in a week before the SADAG results came out by the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF. A UN report poll that conducted with 5,500 responses found that 65% of young people who responded stated that they had some form of mental health issue but did not seek help. 65%. Of the 5,000 people. And then more than a quarter didn't think their mental health problem was serious enough to seek support. And then while 20% of the respondents did not know where to get help, and 18% were afraid what people would think. And before we even get into the conversation, if you don't know where to get help, the SADAG helpline is 0800 567 567. I'll also link their website in the description box below, which you can get more information and more helplines as well, and more lines that you can call for assistance. There is help if you do need help with your mental health issues. SADAG is a group that deals with and has been in the space for a long time and deals with these issues, so they will be the ones that will be able to help you. So I personally do encourage you to call that line if you feel like you do need help. So Nthabi, we're going to go into the conversation now.
Yes.
And start talking. Why mental health advocacy?
So for the longest time, I've always somehow spoken out about mental health issues, because like any other health issue, it's such an important element of how we show up in the world. And so for me, the reason why it's been such a thing that's very close to my heart, and I've spoken about it and I've advocated for it, especially in the workplace, because that's an environment where you are supposed to show up in a certain way, right? And so we often walk into the places we work and we leave ourselves at the turntables, like at the turnstiles, at the turnstiles, at the turnstiles, and then we kind of just bring the facade of who we want people to think we are, and never really fully ourselves, and so people can't really experience our authentic selves. So the reason I've become very vocal about it is also because of the fact that I myself struggle with mental health issues, and the important thing was for me sharing what my lived experience looked like with that moment. And I think also being open and vulnerable to share my story, because for me to then say I'm going to be an advocate for something that I don't know anything about, so it was better for me to be an advocate for it, because I absolutely understood what it meant, what it looked like, the work that goes into it. And so it's just an important thing that a lot of people are struggling with. They just don't have the terms or the name for it.
Yes.
And so when you see somebody that looks like you, that kind of has gone through what you've gone through and can name it, for me meant that a lot of people can then realize whatever that they're struggling with, and not be afraid of what the world would think of them, which is really not an easy thing to.
And the stats say that a lot of people are finding it difficult to even acknowledge that they have a problem, or even tell people that they have a problem. And in my research and preparing for this conversation, I was very apprehensive about what do I talk about, what don't I talk about, because I'm like hyper aware of myself in that moment. And I'm somebody that talks about everything, about my sexuality, about a lot of things. But this one was a bit of what do I do? What do I not do? And then as a form of breaking the ice, I just want to get a bit personal with this issue so that we can and dive into it. And I was actually thinking about what was my lowest moment, right? Throughout this whole cycle, especially with the stats talking about during the pandemic and how cases went up, how people were calling. Last year, 400,000 people called the SADAG line in 8 months or 9 months. So I was like, when was my lowest moment, and can I draw on that and share it with you, and then share it with my honeys out there, and just talk about my issue. And I just want to touch on it in a bit, and then maybe when I'm done, you'll also share a little bit of your story, so that we can get to understand what are you advocating for, and it's not asiki pezu.
Yes.
So with me, Nthabi, and I don't know if I've told you, and I don't think I've told you, you're probably going to hear this for the first time. I had a mental breakdown in May or June 2020.
Okay.
And the reason I had a mental breakdown at that time was because in 2019 I lost a colleague and a friend, because work before the pandemic, those were the places we spent a lot of time. And in as much as like, I don't want friends at work, you're lying, you're gonna make friends, you're gonna get close to people. It's just human nature, right? You see people, and you were seeing people more than you were seeing your own family, so you might as well build good connections. So my colleague passed away, Leonie, may her soul rest in peace, and it was a sudden death. And as we know with sudden death, that it can be traumatic for the people left behind to experience, because one moment literally the person is here and then next she's gone. On Friday, and I even remember the date, on Friday the 20th of December was the last time I saw her, and I said to her bye, and we were supposed to hug, right, and say goodbye, because she wasn't gonna come. Her last day was supposed to be on the Monday, the next Monday, but because she was gonna bank and go do her hair, whatever, she was like, no, don't hug me. I don't want them to see you hug me, because they're going to ask me, why are you hugging? We are Monday, so you guys will hug each other on Monday. So we're like, okay, we didn't hug. We did a hug type of thing, but we did say bye, and we had a very beautiful conversation. And Leonie left the building, literally. She left early even, because she was going somewhere. And she left on that Friday. On Sunday, unbeknownst to me, she had the accident and passed away. On Monday morning, her mother was at our office and it didn't register. So I was thinking her mother was looking for her. Leonie has a lot. I'm like, I will Leonie December so I'm like, where's Leonie? You know, where's Leonie? And then I'm busy and they're like, please call your supervisor. And I'm looking for our supervisor. He's got to the smoking area. You know, it was just a mess. And then the one time I come down the lift and then the security lady, she says, how lento yenzeke ibuhlungu to kulmangani. And she's like, how about I need to get a accident? She passed away in an accident. And I was like, what? And our supervisor spoke to her family and he came to confirm it and we just broke down. I personally broke down because I'm like, what? I was with this person on Friday and I was speaking to her on Saturday even, you know, because I had known her plans and I was asking her about it. Like, what the hell, right, Nthabi? And so I go into 2020, I go into 2020 and it's this grief. It's like heavy grief and I'm grieving my friend and colleague, and it's Jan, Feb, March, the pandemic hits. And we're alone. We're not seeing people. And you know, before, when you lose a colleague or anybody, when you're at the office, it's a bit better because we are with people that are experiencing the same thing. And when you cry, they're able to comfort you because we all experience at different times and we cry at different times and it becomes overwhelming for all of us at different times. But we're able to share in the grief because I had taken shared grief so for granted, right? And it was like, whatever. But then in that moment I realized, I need to be around people. I need to share, and especially colleagues, because they knew her and these are the people who will understand me when I cry, when I talk about her and we talk about our memories. So the hard lockdown hit. I was alone in March. In April I lost a second colleague and friend, Utolan. He had an epileptic fit in his sleep and he suffocated on his pillow, tragically passed away. Second person. I tried to move and now it's this lockdown. I'm alone, I'm living alone, we're not seeing people, you're working from home. Nthabiseng, I had a breakdown. I called our office's helpline. You know, you have the helplines where you can, for mental health, for suicide, rape counseling, whatever kind of counseling you were looking for, you call the line. And I realized I'm highly suicidal and I can't cope anymore. I can't even work. I couldn't even concentrate on my work. And I called the line. I spoke to the lady. I spoke to her for like 2 or 3 hours and I was crying. And I was finally, you know, letting all of this out. I'm like, I'm not dealing. I can't. My brain is not wrapping around the fact that I lost 2 people in a short space of time, and I'm like, no, they're just colleagues, and no, they're not. They were my friends. They were my friends, and these were people I literally sat next to. Leonie was this side, Kolani was this side. So
you were in between the two.
I was in between these 2 people for the longest time, for 3-4 years. I was in between these people. These are people I was seeing every day. There is no way you cannot not mourn those people. There is no way their passing cannot affect you. So it affected me so deeply, Nthabi. I had the breakdown. I called in and the lady was able to speak to me, and I was also able to, because we don't want to acknowledge, she encouraged me to take some time off, to ask for some time off, to tell my supervisor that I had spoken to them and they suggested that I take some time off. And I did. I took 3 days off and I was just sleeping, no work, nothing, just sleeping and waking up and eating and reading books. And eventually, part of the biggest reasons why I left my job, getting emotional.
It's okay.
Part of the biggest reason why I left my job is because of Kolani and Leonie. They made me realize how short life is. They made me realize, we need to go live our dreams, guys, because tomorrow is not promised. Tomorrow is not promised. You can be sitting next to somebody who's just like a dreamer like you, and they're planning for the future, and tomorrow they want to go back to school, they want to do whatever, and they're not there. So that encouraged me. And they encouraged me and they gave me that gift in their passing to go out and quit my job and tackle the bull by the horns and go live my life, you know, because tomorrow is not promised. And so that's my story in the short bit. I'll do another video going in depth as well about my own issues.
So I wanted to ask you, so after the conversation that you had with the lady or
it's a lady on the phone
regarding your mental state. Did you ever go back for therapy? Did you consult with somebody else?
No, and that's what I want us to discuss. I didn't, because at the time I wanted to do it the private route.
Okay.
And I was a bit cash strapped. And even now I want to. I've realized, Hori, I can't do this on my own anymore.
Okay.
I need help.
Okay.
Right? So I'm considering, and maybe that's what the advice you'll give me, and the things we'll talk through as to what are my options if I go the public route, because public already, you're like, public hospitals are strapped already.
So there are free counseling sessions that you can get. I'll give you the information, and then you can put it up for your followers, and then they'll
my subbies, my honeys,
your honeys. So you can put up the information. There are sessions that you can get for free.
Okay, cool.
So I mean, not everybody can afford to pay for
a therapist.
A therapist. So there are free sessions that are available, and then also speaking to people from SADAG, they should be able to give you information around what you can do, which centers are open in your area. So those are the things that we'll start maybe sharing along the way.
Okay, cool.
On my social media, I generally do share a lot of that information. Terrie will put up my information on.
Yeah, I'll put it down here.
On the description,
in the description and here as well. So is it on Instagram,
it's
Twitter?
It's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook.
So I'll put
any social media,
your social media handles in the video and in the description box.
So the reason I'm asking you if you ever consulted with another person, a therapist, are you seeing a therapist, was because so I've been in therapy myself since 2016.
Yeah.
2016. So it's about 6
years. 6 years.
Yeah.
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 5.
Yeah. 22.
22.
Yeah.
Oh.
6.
Wow, guys. Like mathematics.
So I've been
6 years.
So I've been in therapy for 6 years.
Yeah.
For the first 2 years I would attend my sessions once or twice a week for 2 years straight. For 2 years straight, I would be in therapy for a week, for once or twice a week, and then I did that for 2 years. And after 2 years, we reevaluated the amount of sessions. So then I then would go every 2 weeks to my sessions, and then I sat on, and then after that, year 4, I'd go every month. Right, and then
once a month.
Okay. Once a month, and then year 5. Year 5 was when COVID hit. No, year 4, I think. Year 4 was when COVID hit.
Yes, 2020.
Yeah,
yes, you're
was
right.
when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then we started, then I do it once a month because it was virtually. And then the second year of lockdown, 2021, I then did it.
Oh my God, this is the 3rd year.
It's insane.
Right?
It's insane.
Hence we're getting our maths.
Yeah.
Because we're like, it can't be.
So I then started doing it whenever I felt I needed it.
Yes.
Right. So the control was with me. It sat with me because I had already gained the tools to be able to navigate my life in a way that is healthy for me.
So let me ask, Nthabi, prior to you even starting in 2016, what was it for you?
So I lost my brother at the end of 2015, right? So 2016 was a whole like autopilot.
Condolences.
Like autopilot moment. Literally also very instant, like I unprepared. Suddenly nothing happened. It was just like very, very sudden. And so 2016 was like literally a year where I couldn't even remember 2016, if I'm being honest. Like, I couldn't, and I didn't realize I didn't remember until I was in therapy. So I was grief stricken for the year, and then I had a very demanding job. But one of my friends who I used to work with, Nomfundo, then said to me, "Are you speaking to anyone? You know, you should go for therapy." I remember my boss then was just like, "Okay, there are these sessions. You can go for as many as you want to," and they would pay. So I was fortunate enough that the company that I worked for was willing to. So there was no. I mean, they give all of us a minimum of 6 sessions, which is like a minimum of 6 sessions, and then if you decide that you want to continue with the sessions, and depending on the need for the sessions, then you can continue, and they will definitely like pay it, because there are people in the organization that will never go for therapy. They don't use those sessions, you know, so
then they
take pull from those sessions, and then, you know, so you can go. So that's why I was able to go so so many times. Like I could go so many times. And so she was just like, no, there are sessions available to you, so speak to somebody. And I think it took me like a year to even speak to someone, because I was just like, no, but I don't have time. Like, it's grief. I don't want to speak to anyone. I don't want to, you know, my feelings, I'm just all over the place. And I also think I just wasn't ready for it, because if I had gone when everybody else was saying I need to go, was that I wouldn't have stuck it through. Because it wouldn't have felt like it was working for me. It wouldn't have felt like I wanted to be there, because everybody had the expectation of me going. But I know now, and I understand that it came from such a well-meaning place, you know. So and then a friend of mine, a couple of months later, then says to me, she walks up to my desk, says to me, have you started speaking to anybody? I should get you the numbers. And I was just like, no, I haven't. I'll talk to them. I can get the numbers myself, you know. And she just was just like, no, let me make this easy for you. Let me get, you know. And she did all of that. And then eventually I called. And then I think I didn't go for a month. I didn't set up the appointment for a month.
I'm laughing because,
and I was just like, okay, I called.
It's fine.
I started the process. I called. And then I think a month later they called me back. Maybe like a week, not even 3 weeks later, they called me back to say, like, am I still coming? Have I gotten a call from anyone like before that? And then I was just like, no, I'll come. And then a week later they called, like the actual therapist, the lady that became my therapist, called and then said to me, okay, let's set up the appointment, right? And I was just like, okay, I think I'm ready to set up the appointment. And then I set up the session. So before even this moment, I had seen 2 other therapists before this moment, and this is I wanna speak on this, because oftentimes we think if this one is not working, no other person will be able to help me navigate. So then I stopped those sessions. I stopped going there, but I gave it another chance, because I understood that specific relationship with my therapist wasn't working for me, and I needed to find somebody who I would connect with, and who would understand what I'm going through, but also who would get the fact that I am this person who is not a sharer. I am not a sharer. And so the way in which she navigates the sessions was very smart, because I remember for the first 3 sessions I sat in complete silence for an hour, like silence, and then I was like, thank you, stood up, took my bag out. Second session, I sat in silence. I got there, I was like, hey, she's like, how are you feeling? I was like, you know, this is how life is. It is what it is. And then I sat there in silence, and I took my bag and I left. Third session, I think the third session was better, because I spoke for like 15 minutes, so I felt like there was progress. I mean, she probably felt like, okay, at least we spoke for 15 minutes. We didn't just greet each other and then that was it. And then the 4th session came in. She asked a few questions, you know. Then I started rambling. Like, I started like going, the fourth session, I started going off. Hey, I was just like, it felt like it was my last session, and I had to speak then, and there was no other session that I would get. And then I started, you know, and then I there was a flow in how we navigated that relationship, but also the flow in the easiness of the conversation. So it wasn't always just that. She'd also ask the things that I enjoy, my hobbies, just to kind of pinpoint this person's personality, like who is she? Is she an introvert? Is she not? And so there were certain things that I discovered about myself from those sessions that had nothing to do with my grief, like outside of the grief, outside of all of that. And you know, and there were like for a long time I thought I was very self-aware, but I actually realized I wasn't as self-aware as I thought I was. And only now, 6 years later, have I become very self-aware about like a lot of stuff, but also like about myself fully, you know, and I can fully engage with my feelings and emotions in such an honest way, which is very, very different from how I would navigate my life back then. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for me it was an act of self-love, and not to say if you're not going, it's not an act of self-love. You know, there are people that would be able to navigate life without ever attending a single session of therapy, but I want people to understand that therapy does not mean you're not well. Therapy is not just for people that are not well emotionally or mentally. Therapy is an act of self-love on every single level. Because even on the good days, I would still go. On the days that I'm having a great day, I would still go and have a conversation about the amazing things that are happening in my life right now, what I'm looking forward to, you know. So it also just kind of puts a lot of things in perspective. That's what it did for me. It put a lot of things in perspective, and so I know how to navigate. I mean, even the functioning, the high functioning depressed person. I was that. I was the high functioning.
Yeah, I think I'm that. I'm currently that.
You could not touch me when I get to that level. Like, So the moment I realized I was so also okay. Let me go back to the moment I realized that I was functioning at a high level, even though I was depressed, was when like my grandmother had just passed, and 2 months later I decided, you know what, like I'm gonna go back to school. I'm going back to school. Like my life was gonna revolve around school and work. I did that, and I swear to God, that was the most amazing semester I had ever had in my school career. Like I literally was registered for 6 law modules. I literally got distinctions for all six. All of the modules I like. And that's how I knew that, like after sitting in my sessions, and my therapist would be like, oh, you're going back to school, okay, let's now start planning how you're going to navigate that with work, you know, don't put yourself under a lot of pressure. Right? But also I think she was very motivating, because with every session she would ask, how's school, how's this going, how's, like, you know, what are your goals, what are you ticking off, and then I think I completed the semester, and then after that semester, after like the best semester of my life, I'm just like, yo, I'm out here, I'm the best version of myself. The girl is as smart as she thinks she is. She's out here,
and that's on purpose. And
listen, she's out here literally after that semester, the following year, like Jan, I'm just like, yeah, school is like, this girl is just gonna be out here. And then she's just like, no, I think we need to get a second opinion. So I'm referring you to a psychiatrist. And I'm just like,
man,
babes, I'm getting distinctions. Have you not been in the same room as me? I am the girl I think I am. Okay, I'm out here I'm out here. I'm getting like which other client of yours is getting, a patient of yours is getting distinctions like I am, ma'am, please. So then following year, she's like, no, let's get you checked out by a psychiatrist. So I set up a session, lovely lady, and she's just like, you know, we're having a conversation there. She's like, it's a conversation. It's like you're being interviewed, but not for a job, so it's not difficult. It's just a matter of like trying to find out who you are, where you are in your headspace, all those things emotionally, where you are, your story. So she does that, and like literally like calls me I think a week later or a couple of days later to say, no, you need to come back in, and she's like, no, I think you're depressed. And I'm like, babes, where how? My face is beat. My hair's dead, my nails are dead.
Man,
Like
I am
I
looking.
have lipstick on. What is this depression you speak of? Can never be me. Not me. No, babes. I'm like, no, and I'm just like, and then I mean, while we're sitting there, I'm just like, you think so, right? Because it kind of hits you. It kind of hits you, and then she runs through certain things that she kind of picked up, that came through. She kind of runs. So it's not a lie, because it's literally everything that you told her. This is information she got from you.
And you're like, damn, I told her myself.
Did I do that? Could I not see it, right? And I think after that session, and we sat and we spoke, like, we spoke about a lot of things. We spoke, and I think after leaving there, after that, for me, it was just sort of like an aha moment, but not in a bad way, in a good way. Like I when I left there, I felt good about knowing what I need to do. So it's like you being diagnosed with what?
High blood pressure.
Yes. And now knowing how to treat it.
Yes.
Right. So for the longest time, I just didn't want. So with my therapist, we had spoken about getting on medication for a while, and I was like, I don't wanna feel lethargic. So I had all of these things playing out in my head that didn't make sense, because I didn't really quite know what, like, being on antidepressants would look like, right? But I had this idea that it would make you lethargic the whole time. You would be numb.
It will kill your creativity.
Yeah, it will. And that for me was the biggest thing. I was like, no, I don't want to not have fashion sense. What? There's absolutely no way I'm alive. So there were a lot of things. I was like, no, I don't want to be boring. I don't want to be quiet when I'm with my friend. Like, all these things that I had made up in my head without really having the correct information, right? And she was like, no. That's really not what it is. That's really not what it is. But I mean, speak to this person that I'm referring you to, and because she's a professional in that aspect. Yeah. So she's gonna be able to kind of run you through the things that you can do and what this will require.
I love the conversation. I'm loving this. I'm loving what you're saying, because what you're doing in my head when I'm sitting back and looking at you, you're painting my picture. You know? You're painting a picture of a lot of people, because in our heads, a depressed person is lethargic, doesn't bath, doesn't eat, doesn't go anywhere, is sleeping all day. Because yes, sometimes when like 3 weeks ago, when a week before Rick committed suicide, on the Monday before that, I woke up and I just had a heavy cloud hanging over my head, and I slept and I ate and I went back to bed, and then I slept the whole day, right? And in our heads, we think that's what depression is throughout the whole time.
But
and it was just that one moment.
It's a symptom.
It's a symptom.
Right? So there will be symptoms that will show up differently for all of us. Right. So for some people, and there's actually a video I saw on TikTok the other day where I had sent it to, I don't think I sent it to you, I sent it to a few people in my circle. And because generally in every single circle I'm in, I will always speak about mental health issues, because I also want the circles that I'm in and navigating to be able to, like, come to us. I want people to come, like, it's an open environment. I want if my friends are feeling a certain way, I want them to know that they can get the help that they need and they deserve, but also that it's an open platform where we're some of us are able to hold space for you, and not to say that we are the people to save you, which is another thing that I really want us to go into. But that there's a community of people that will be able to hold space for you. So it's an open conversation about it. But I want it to never feel like it's taboo. Like when a person is feeling a certain way, I never want it to feel like it's taboo. But even like what you're getting to, that I'm trying to paint a picture of what it doesn't look like all the time, but also what it could look like, which is very different from what we've always known it to be, right? So for other people, you are perfectly made to the world. Like, you are, your hair's done, your nails, like, you are you're
girl.
clean, you're this,
Yes.
you're showing up in this way, you seem to have it all together and whatever. And so this video specifically that I speak about is of this woman who says, to another person, my life seems like it's perfect because I show up in a certain way, but I know I'm depressed because, and then she shows you a video of her room. It is a mess. And she's like, sometimes this is what depression will show up as, right? Because I have to show up for work.
Yeah.
I have to show up for work.
Yeah.
If you work at a bank, if you work for a very corporate organization, you can't get to work in your PJs. You're going to show up in a suit. You're going to show up the way that you're supposed to show up, right? And so if you're going for lunch with your friend, you are going to make sure that you're made up and show up in that way, right? So
I spoke about this where I was like, me too, when I know that things are not good inside, my outside.
Your space
my kitchen, I love my kitchen.
Yeah.
That's my favorite place.
Yeah.
When it's a mess, I know I'm not. I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I'm not washing the dishes. I'm not cleaning after myself after I make food, because that's my sacred space. So I like to keep it clean. I like to keep it ready for the next session, for the next therapy session. In terms of my cooking sessions, I feel like they're some kind of therapy to me. But when I don't clean that space, I know, okay, things are getting out of hand. And this is what I also want to talk about with you, to say, what would you say, especially the language around mental health, right? First, we'll talk about that. Wait, hold on, let's finish this one and say, what would you say to me, or what would you recommend to a person who feels like they no longer can do it on their own? Let's talk about the places that we can reach out to.
So when you no longer feel like you can do it alone, that is such a valid moment. It's a valid moment. And that is when you need to listen to yourself. That is when you need to listen to yourself, because that moment doesn't come to you because there's nothing going on. The moment is coming to you because you're in that moment. You're feeling exactly that. And so it's a valid moment. And I think oftentimes if you feel like people are going to say this, or you're worried about all of those things, is that there are helplines that you can call. I would suggest that don't just speak to your family or your friends, because they might not have the capacity to hold the space for you, because they are not professionally trained to be able to hold that space for you. And so for me, I always say seek professional help. It's very important, because...
So how do we seek professional help in this country, in South Africa? What would you suggest? People not on medical aid and people on medical aid, what would you suggest we do?
Another thing is that some people that work for corporate or who are on medical aid don't even know that these services are available to them, right? So if you work and you work for a specific company, like, go to your HR and ask about the wellness center, right? Ask about the wellness center. Go to the wellness center. Ask what kind of services do they offer, right? And because that's a starting point. But also, if you don't want to, because I think with where I used to work, is that you could actually look for a therapist outside of that environment and that network. They could refer you to somebody else outside that you're comfortable with, right? And so they are, I mean, even on social media. So what I do is that I generally will search for mental health pages that generally share this kind of information. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of pages where people dedicate certain time to having these conversations, facilitating these conversations with professionals that are already working in that environment. And so what I do is that I will search for those and try and share it with the people around me, the people that follow me, the people that I follow. And so I try to share it like that, because honestly, I don't have the means to. I mean, if one person sees it, for me, that's enough.
Yeah.
If one person sees it and they are able to help another person, that really is enough. So that's
so the SADAG helpline
is there. But I mean, if you go on Google, because we spend a lot of time on social media.
We do.
On Twitter, there are literally like people that will say there's a therapist here, there's a therapist there, there's free services here, free services there.
I took screenshots after Rick Rick's passing.
So I generally, and I mean, if you go to a clinic or hospital where you live, most of the time they also do have this information. I mean, those pamphlets that you find in clinics sometimes do generally like give you. I know in Alex there are people that are getting like free therapy sessions there. There's somebody who is on like medication for depression. I mean, I saw a tweet the other day, and so there are facilities are there. But if you go to clinics around you, if you don't have medical aid, if you don't have the means to pay for a private therapist, then there are ways of you kind of like getting this information. So your nearest clinic, your nearest hospital, they generally do have this information for you. So
that's true. Yeah, that's what I wanted us to get into, because somebody's sitting there like, where do I start? Where do I go? Go to your nearest clinic, go to your nearest hospital. They're not gonna turn you away.
Yeah.
Call SADAG, tell them where you live, and they'll direct you to a nearest center that they work.
And I think another thing that we need to get to is that you actually don't have to have a mental illness for you to be able to access that information or give access to other people, right? So this is information that we should all have. This is information that we should all have access to, because if a friend struggles, if a sibling struggles, if a parent struggles, if a child struggles, then at least they already have somebody in their circle who has that information and that access. So it's not really about, it's like having a number for an ambulance. You don't have to need it at that moment, but you have it.
And you know what I want to say now in this conversation is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is my view, I only had that call, and like you asked me, did I go? I haven't gone. I'm in the process, and I'll take your advice to say go the public route for now as well. But what I'm thinking in my head right now in this conversation is, like we shared, our points of grief were actually what tipped the kettle for us, right? But that's not the only thing, because even in the moments where you are breaking down, you realize it's a culmination of a lot of things. It's your childhood, like the language people use on social media, traumas. Childhood traumas, relationship trauma, societal trauma, the environment. Even my research in SADAG with stats I was reading, the article does go to say what creates like depression, anxiety, what kind of environment would we find people that are depressed and anxious. And it says it first starts individually, whatever an individual is going through, and also the environment has an impact on what they also go through. So it shifts and changes depending on what is happening in the environment at the time. And the article cited like unemployment rate, the pandemic and the lockdowns and the uncertainty and all of those things did contribute to people's mental health issues. And broadly, I think as people, even in your sessions, probably you went back to your childhood type of thing.
Yeah, so
you touch on everything.
So for some people, it's definitely for some people it is that it will show up like that. It will be triggered by external things, but for other people it's not, right? Because you literally will have a good life.
Yes.
You will have so we need to move away from that as well, that it was something outside of me,
the person,
right? Yeah. So with some people it's not even that. It's not even that, because you're and for other people you're triggered by something, but it's always been there.
Yes,
it's always been there. And so when this thing then happens, then it's a culmination of all of these things. But it was always there, and not to say that there's a specific thing that either happened to you or whatever. With some people, it's not a specific moment. It's not a specific event. It's just a thing that they need to live with and they carry with them.
I just want to quickly talk about the LGBTQI plus community and mental health, and over and above what you're saying with the community as well, with my research that I was doing and my personal lived experience, and I'm like, you know, life as an LGBT person in the world can be daunting, especially. I even went back to my childhood. I was walking yesterday from the shops. I went to the shops. I walked past the school, and my immediate thought was, if I were to come back, if anything happened to me now and they rewinded me back to school, I would literally die. And I knew what I knew now, I would die back then, because it was, well, if I repeated my life again, because school was horrific. School was horrific in as much as I was strong and I grew a thick skin. I didn't have to. I was a child, and I should have enjoyed childhood. But because I was queer and I was feminine and I was girly and I was playing with girls instead of boys, the teasing would get to you. The bullying would get to you. You would stand up for yourself, but you constantly are hyper vigilant and are waiting for something to go wrong. You have your fists, you know, drawn up everywhere you go, because you're waiting to fight, you know. And I go back to those moments and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, it was so much, and we did not have the grace, or I did not have the grace back then to have somebody to speak to or deal with those situations. And I'm 35 years old and I haven't even dealt with those things. Yeah. And as I sit and I think about them, they make me uncomfortable, you know, and I'm like, that was a lot. And those are things that I probably need to sit down with somebody and go through and deal with. Babes, let's go into the family. The family as well is you know, bless my mother's soul, but she couldn't handle me. You know, she was we were navigating this thing together.
I also think, you know, as an adult now in my life, right? I also think, I mean, for me, my relationship with my mom is like absolutely amazing, and it's always been, right? But I often say this to friends and other people and conversations that I have with people that would be like, you know, like I need to nurture like my inner child because of my traumas and whatever, is that we also need to give grace to our parents who didn't have the language, the understanding, or the education and the access to all of this information, right? Because a lot of them are learning from us. A lot of them had to learn firsthand.
And also, you're quite right. Give grace, especially where a parent then in the future, which is now, comes to you and says, I'm sorry if I did anything that harmed you. I was trying my best. I didn't know what I was doing. And you're like, okay. But because you need to go through things, there are days that you'll still be angry. And I'm like, why am I angry? Because this person did apologize. I need to learn to let go of that anger or deal with it or whatever. And this is why I'm thinking I need therapy, because I need to go through this session where I speak to a professional who will help me deal with all of these, all of my childhood trauma. So you're quite correct. Grace needs to be given to our parents who are navigating this thing with us. And even if you're currently even in a situation where you don't get along with your parents and you don't, there's just a breakdown of a relationship, there's some form of healing that you need to do. There's some form of, I don't know, forgiving, because some people don't believe in forgiving where a person didn't ask for forgiveness, but for yourself, you know, so that you can function and be healthy. Because when I say I don't want children, I ask myself and I say, is it because I had a traumatic childhood that I don't want children, or I just generally don't want? And it's a bit of both. I'm scared of being my parents who are figuring things out on my child, right? And I'm also like, I can't even control me.
So how am I gonna control?
Oh my God, you know, I can't even take care of me. I can't trust me with me. How am I gonna trust me with another life? And I feel like it's such a big. It overwhelms me when I think about a child, because that's a commitment, right? That's a lifetime commitment. And I'm like, yo, there's so much responsibility to put on myself and give myself a lifetime. And I'm human. I'm gonna make mistakes. This person is gonna hate me and love me and whatever. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. You know, to have that experience of like this person's life for the first 18 years of their life depends on me. You're so much work.
Are we ever ready for most things?
No, we're not.
And I ask this question because of the fact that how will you know you're ready? Because I mean, obviously, like certain things like age and all those things, those components will sometimes matter. But
and finances,
after that, outside of all of that, how do you know you're ready? Because you haven't experienced it.
Yes. True. Even
it's a new
relationships, marriage. Job. You know,
you don't know whether you're going to be good at it.
Especially
driving, you don't know whether you're going to be good at it until you are good at it.
And you do it.
And you're doing it.
You know.
So a lot of things we don't know whether we'll be good at it. A lot of things.
And also I love friendships as well because they're such a good reflections of us, like you're saying.
We're mirrors of each other.
Yeah. I'll have friends when I'm sitting with a friend. There's a friend of mine, Uzola. She always says this and it stands out for me. When we're talking about being parent, without flinching, she says, "You would make the best mom." And I'm like, "Friend,"
I think
she's
so
like,
too.
"You would make."
I think
you don't
so
know
too.
what an amazing parent you. And I'm like, "Girl, you highly think too much of me." No. But I think about that. I'm like, she's actually quite right. I would. I know myself. I'm just afraid.
You also wouldn't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Know until
you know what I'm saying? And then I'm like, and there's another friend of mine. I always say, "Oh no, I'm damaged goods. Forget about me. Run away."
What?
And she's like, "What? Don't talk to her don't talk like that about yourself." Another friend will be like, she'll be like, we're talking, she's getting married soon. She's having a wedding, and she's like, she said in the conversation, she's like, I'm not getting married because I'm internalizing what the world says. Like, you're a trans woman, nobody loves you, you're not gonna get married. She's like, how do you know that? You gotta get married, you make a good partner. I'm like, you know what I'm saying?
So for me, it showed up in a different way. So for me, I always said, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. Not that I'm never gonna get it. I always said no first because I was so afraid of owning the fact that I want it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so because I never believed that I deserved it, that I would block it before it happens. Because I thought you're not deserving of it. So rather than say I don't want it, than saying it might not happen. Like, so I don't want it, meaning that whether it happens or not, I was the one in control of it. I didn't make it happen for myself. And so and so for me, what the years of therapy did for me was I started reaffirming myself. Right, in because with everything that I feel that I want, I deserve it. I want peace. It's my portion. It's my portion. So I'm working towards that. So all those things, like, this is why we have vision boards.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. This is why we have vision boards to. It's sort of like a reaffirmation of, like, every day I see it.
In that spot, I'm reaffirming kids.
Yes, I'm reaffirming that this is the thing that I want. I'm putting it out there in the universe. But I'm also working intentionally.
Yes.
Very intentionally and deliberately towards those things.
Even though, girl, I need to do a video on manifestation because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, you know? So I just want to quickly bring in this aspect of the conversation. I want to quickly talk about the person that inspired this video, and this was Ricky Rick. After his passing, may his soul rest in peace, we had this, it opened up the dialogue around mental health, and he was very open.
Yeah, I remember.
About his mental
I also
health.
remember you sending me a message and saying, I think we should do this.
Yes.
This is something that we should do.
So Ricky Rick inspired this conversation because he was somebody that was so open and so loving, and even the like you're saying, Khore, we think Muto depressed or broke or something. Ricky had money. He had money. He had a career. He had built a career. You know.
He shared so much love. And
he shared so much love, and he did things his own. And now when you look back at his life, and it's so unfortunate that we can only posthumously look back at people's lives and not during when it happens, right?
Yeah.
I look at it. Fuck, he was such a genius. You know, he was such a fashion, especially as people that love fashion, that are into, you're like, what a damn genius.
Listen, let me tell you, like, we are yet to see another man to walk the streets of South Africa and that had the immaculate style and fashion sense of Ricky Rick. Like, we will never, like,
he supported everybody.
We lived in a generation where we saw, like, a man, like, dress that well every single day, look that good every single day. Right? Shared so much of himself every single day with people and their dreams.
Yes.
Like, there's something about somebody who supports a person's dreams and vision before the world sees it.
Yeah,
there's something special about that.
I remember seeing him at the Feather Awards, and he had won an award, and he took it so seriously. His thank you speech was one of the best speeches I had heard that night. But I just shoved it because I couldn't place him, right? I'm like, South African man, such an ally of the community. I owe me,
but also,
and it wasn't even that,
it's
right?
It's self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's a self-awareness that a lot of us like are working on. It's a self-awareness of knowing and the self-awareness of being, there was somebody that tweeted, people were saying a lot of things around Ricky's death and all of those things, and somebody tweeted how he was such a he had so much self-awareness, like he was aware of himself. He knew these things. He was so aware of his mental state. He was so aware. He spoke openly about it. And I think for me, that kind of vulnerability when you're on that kind of platform, right? Because for so many of us, we think that we're gonna risk our bag when we speak about these things. We speak about this, we're risking our bag. We're risking, people must not know that I'm not. But for somebody on that platform to share themselves like that in such an authentic way. Listen,
man, we have been going for an hour now. It's gonna come up to an hour, and it feels like we've been talking for ever and ever. We're going to like I was saying, we're gonna just wrap the conversation up, and then, because this is lovely, it's gonna be more than an hour long. It's worth. And I always say on my channel, I don't limit time, especially for important conversations. I will have them, and the people who will watch this for 1 hour 20 minutes will watch it. For 90 minutes they will watch it, because it's that in depth, it's that rich and detailed, and the conversation you just had. And firstly, I just want to thank you for coming. I know you were very anxious and nervous about this moment. I was too. But look at us. We went for more than an hour.
I was, because it's a part of my life that I've never really shared with people outside of my circle.
Yeah, me too. So, my story as well, I've never even shared with some of my friends, because you don't want to worry people and all of that.
For me, it wasn't even about worrying people, but and this is what I want to get to before we wrap up. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't really about worrying people, right? So a lot of times we think that people that somehow succumb to suicide or lose their battle with depression, some sort of mental health illness, is that it's that they didn't have the support they needed. Babes, some of us have the world's #1 support system. We have it together. Our support systems are fine. They're there. We don't have to doubt it. There are people that can have that. There are 10 people they can call, and all 10 of them will show up in that moment. All 10 of them. So the fact that people think that the lack of support that people receive is the reason why people succumb to certain things is not really the whole truth, and it's a myth that we need to get rid of quickly. Because it's not going to help us move forward.
And that's the language aspect as well. The language we use around people taking their lives is they didn't have support.
Survivor's guilt is a real thing.
Yes,
when you've given someone support and they still succumb to something, is that you will carry the guilt with you. You will carry the guilt with you. And so it's very unfair for people outside of that support circle to then decide that, oh no, this person wasn't given enough support, when really people were giving them support. They were showing up, they were holding space. And so for us to be able to have an understanding sometimes is that we need to sit back and ask the questions, what does this look like, what does this mean, is it possible? There's a lot to learn, even for I'm not a pro at this. I just have a personal experience with it, and that's the difference. I'm not a pro at it. I have a personal experience with it. So I generally will speak from my place of experience. If I pick up certain things, and I can help you identify certain things or learn something new, if it's something that you don't know. But sorry to no problem.
But I just want to ask you quickly before I forget. where are we going to see Nthabiseng? Because this is this is great work. So how is she going to? This is the first of publicly doing the work, and now expanding it beyond your personal and private circles and into the world.
Yes.
When are you taking this gospel into the world? Where can we see you? You know, do you have any plans?
Yeah, I mean, the plans are there. I can't really share a lot right now. The plans are there for the work to be done. And I also, because like a couple of my friends from like you are one person who said to me, I think you should start doing this work. You know, I mean, 3 other friends of mine, they like at different moments, like literally that week that when we spoke, that week, like other people were like, we think you should start doing this work. I mean, for two of those people, like my friends, who are people I met at work, had seen me do the work at work. So they had seen me do the work at work. And I think for us to be able to learn more about it and move in a direction that will help a lot of us, is that mental health issues should be, and mental health awareness should be included in transformation in organizations. And that's my take. My take is that in order for there to be inclusion,
now you answered my question.
Inclusion, diversity, and transformation, there needs to be a whole chunk of that should be that, because if we're going to transform a space and an environment, is that it needs to be open, it needs to be inclusive of everything and everyone in their full capacity.
Amen.
So that's my take on it.
Okay, well, we'll put together a business plan on how we're taking this to these corporates. Thank you so much again. I love this conversation. We will probably have a part 2 one day, and just to expand once you've gone into the world and you come back and you're like, okay, so these are the new things we need to talk about. And especially, I think we need to have a conversation about working the corporate world and mental health. That's our next.
I'm ready to have that conversation.
Are you ready?
That is my life.
Okay, cool.
That conversation is
okay, cool. We're gonna have that conversation. We're definitely gonna have the conversation. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching, honeys. We'll see you in the next video.